I'd love to welcome everyone and thank you for joining today for the Elevating the Real Estate Customer Experience, Houston Association of Realtor. I am Andy Hawks, Senior Account Manager here at Mapbox, and we're excited to dive right in to how the Houston Association of Realtors, also known as HAR, utilized Mapbox to build a leading real estate platform empowering both realtors and home buyers. So what I'd like to do is move right over to introduce our host here. And our host is Eric Delorbe, Senior iOS Developer at HAR. So let's jump right into it. Eric, thank you for joining. Would you please introduce yourself? The audience would love to learn a little bit more about you.
Sure. Thank you, Andy. I'm happy to be here and joining you guys for this webinar. So like Andy said, my name is Eric Delorbe. I'm the Senior iOS and Mobile Developer for HAR. But I started as a web developer and I was in charge of all things mapping on HAR. And I was instrumental in sort of getting HAR onto Mapbox.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. So great to have you here. Could you give us a brief overview of HAR and its role in the Houston real estate market?
Sure. So for those of you that don't know, the Houston Association of Realtors is a 50,000 member board. We've won several awards for our technology initiatives. And we are one of the largest regional associations in the country. And we basically represent realtors. Realtors are our number one focus. And because we do that, we also cater to their consumers. So we sort of have two clients. We serve the realtors, and in order to serve them, we also serve their consumers.
Cool. Okay, great. And we're going to dig into that a little deeper as to the experience for both sides. So why don't we talk about market challenges, Eric? What are some of the main challenges faced by both these realtors and the home buyers and home sellers in today's real estate market?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I mentioned, we serve both realtors and consumers, and everything that we do is sort of centered around that. And so on the realtor side, they need to sort of stand out among all of these other realtors to consumers, right? And so we provide them with tools in order to visualize properties and do searches and things like that. And more than anything, the reason why we serve both them and the consumers is we want to put realtors first for consumers. So we also provide tools for consumers, not just for realtors. And so we serve both of them. And so I talked about what the realtor challenges are, right? And so for consumers just want tools. They just want to look for a home, find a good home, find a good realtor. And so we provide tools around to meet those needs for both, for the realtor to stand out and for the consumer to find the right home and the right realtor.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get in a little deeper into this. I mean, it's like, how do you address those unique challenges? And I think you touched on that. Maybe what would be interesting, Eric, is tell us a little bit about the early days. You've been with Mapbox for almost coming up on 8 years. So it'd be really interesting for our audience to learn a bit about your journey with Mapbox and initially, why did you choose Mapbox as a partner? What were the challenges you and your team were facing at that time?
Yeah, so it is kind of interesting to think about that we've been with Mapbox for so long, but back then we were with Google Maps, and they had changed their pricing strategy, and the way that it was structured, it was gonna be like a very significant increase to our bill. And so we started evaluating different things and sort of we even thought about lowering our usage. But as you probably know, in real estate, mapping is essential. You can't have real estate without showing the areas and things like that. So we started looking at different things. We even looked at rolling out our own open street map backed mapping solution. But that was going to be too much maintenance, and we didn't want to sort of direct so many resources to doing that. And then we found Mapbox, such a great fit because it was such a good product, like beautifully looking product, but it solved our issue of sort of tying our hands on the bill side, where we were going to be able to continue our usage and even grow our usage and continue to put out tools for consumers and realtors without thinking like, oh, is this going to break the bank for us? So Mapbox has been a great partner since then. Not just, I mean, we sort of, the bill was what sort of put us on, hey, let's reevaluate how the field looks out there. And so we came for that, and we stayed for the great product and the great tools that Mapbox offered over the years.
Cool. That's great. Sounds like a pivotal moment for HAR. We love to hear that turning point. So looking back at these years, could you share some of the milestones from your product perspective? Like, how has Mapbox helped you achieve business goals and really assume and move into that market leadership position that HAR currently sits in?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I mean, when you have that freedom to sort of just say, okay, we have a partner here that's going to have our back, and that's not going to do sort of like a rug pull, which is what we sort of felt like with our previous vendor. Then you sort of feel free to sort of dream up and say, okay, how can we serve consumers and realtors? What are the things that we can go out there and do? And so we were able to. I remember we did a redesign around the time that we switched to Mapbox, and so in that redesign, we would normally have to, oh, well, we're going to put a map here or another map here, and we sort of had to throttle ourselves. The Mapbox gave us the freedom to say, hey, whatever is best for the user, whether it's a realtor or consumer, let's do that thing. And so that freedom to do that, it's invaluable, right? In this sort of market of inflation and things going up. So that for us was huge. And so I don't know if you want to jump into a demo. I can show you some of the things that
Let me
we've done.
1 second, Erica. I don't know if it's our side or yours. You were fading just a bit. Is that
I'm sorry.
Your audio? It's all right. I wasn't sure if something switched. That you sound better now.
Okay.
We can jump. Yeah, it faded, but I think, folks, is it coming back? Hopefully it is. Yeah, a little muffled. Eric, why don't you say a few words?
So can you guys hear me well now?
Yes, all good now. Nice, great.
Better.
Thank you.
Okay, good. I'm sorry. I'm not sure how much of that you caught then.
No, we did. I think it was just a little muffled.
Okay.
Before you jump in, I think what's cool is give us some more insight details on. You shared that Mapbox gave HAR the ability to almost, here's a platform, go as fast and as sophisticated and as much in a customization perspective as you want, right? Can you tell us a little more about that? Because I think that's a real sweet spot for the Mapbox platform and why our customers love us. So
yeah, absolutely. Like speaking of customization, so when we one of our biggest concern when we were switching over is how are we going to be able to bring our own custom data as data layers and things like that. We had a couple of vendors. We also have our own data that we were going to bring over, and so it was super easy. And mind you, back then Mapbox wasn't as widely known in the space. So like our vendor had a bunch of examples but they were for Google Maps. They weren't examples for Mapbox. But we were able to move over our custom data layers into Mapbox seamlessly. And so the ability to just go in there and say, hey, let's play with this, and know that we can bring over our data and we have a vector map, it was awesome. It was super cool.
Yeah. Well, if you want to show us, we can get back into a little more of the uh, kind of the high points. We can go deeper, but why don't you, if you'd like, would love to jump right into to a demo and see what you've created.
Sure. And so let me, okay, and you guys can still hear me, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. I
Awesome,
think
awesome.
we can see that. Great. You
Okay,
might, yeah, I think we're good, right? Everyone should be able to see that.
yeah. And so this is our main search, which both consumers and realtors use. And so these are some of the layers that we brought over, and places and things like that that um that we show our consumers. And now, mind you, um, these are not Mapbox provided layers, which I think is awesome. You can just bring your own data or another vendor's data, whatever you like. Um, but we'll talk about a little bit later about what we're planning to do. We're really sort of
Mm-hmm.
overhauling these layers with the flexibility that Mapbox provides us. But these vector maps, this that the zooming in, the crispness, I that's something that I love. Since I'm doing iOS development now, in iOS you have a nice looking vector map, and then you would switch to the website and you would have these raster maps, and just it looks so much better. And so this is a very basic map search, right? And so we we also created this tool. It's more like a service, Showing Smart. And so if you're not in real estate, maybe it's not very obvious, but basically what this does is this allows agent to agent communication for showings. And so when an agent wants to show their client a home or a set of homes, they would come in here and they would schedule those with those agents through this system. And then we have a call center where they'll call and schedule those and say, hey, this appointment is confirmed. This one was not confirmed. This one can be this day or that day. And so the agent doesn't have to worry about calling 5 different agents to schedule. They just say, okay, I want to schedule this and this and this, and we do it for them. And so one of the things that we added on there as well is the ability to create a tour. So they come in here, they create a tour, they add a starting point, and then they can start adding listings. And so they can add a listing with either an address or an MLS number. So I'm gonna pull up one of these listings that I have here. Our rows. And so we integrated it with our data, but we map it immediately. And so as they add in more and more listings, this automatically sort of gives them the best route to show the agent, to show the consumer the homes, and it sort of routes them optimally. Um, and so we're using Mapbox Directions API to do that, and it's worked great. We also have we have a mobile app for Showing Smart that does the same thing. That's also using the Mapbox mobile SDK. So these are some of the high level things that we've done with Mapbox. There's a ton more though.
That's awesome. That's really excited to see. So with this in-app, not only can you schedule multiple showings, but then it shows directions. You can navigate as well in the app, right? So it's a
Right.
very, yeah, okay, great. That's exciting. And how many? What's kind of an average monthly? Uh, I'm just thinking of how many app users would in the greater Houston market are leveraging the app.
Well, so we recently we wanted some visibility on that, and we recently
Hmm.
added analytics to that app. It's our
Hmm.
second most used app, and it's about, and this is, I'm just talking about the mobile app. It's about 10,000 active users a month,
Hmm.
which I was surprised by that number. But mind you, there's a lot of agents that don't use the mobile app and they go to the website. So I'm sure that there's even more users on the website as well. Because I'm assuming the agents use the mobile app when they're on the go or whatever, but when they're in their office, then they'll go to the website. So yeah,
That's that's
it
great.
took, this was a product that was born out of a necessity from agents. They were looking around the market. I think Zillow acquired one of the only companies that did this. And so they came to us and said, you know, we we are not comfortable with Zillow sort of having the monopoly on this. And we were able to create this in a couple of months. And it is now in our market. Last time I looked at the numbers, we've had 60% of the market in Houston, which is awesome. It's a success. And so
Hmm.
it is something that Mapbox has been a very critical partner in sort of having the flexibility of say, hey, look, this is now 10, maybe 20,000 more users a month, more usage that you're going to have to your maps and to everything. And we were able to just do that and have that flexibility. And I can tell you, we would not have been able to do that without Mapbox for sure.
Love it. Thank you, Eric. Is there anything else you want to show? Uh,
No, no, that's all I
okay.
had.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the next question I had is really just give us an idea. You've been really forthcoming with what you love about Mapbox. This is kind of an opportunity to hit on a few more high points that you feel might be valuable for not only real estate associations we have on the call, but um, real estate agents, smaller companies, almost to anyone. If you could just share some of what you love about really over your 8 years, um, what are some things that set Mapbox apart?
Absolutely. I know I've mentioned some of these, and I might repeat them again, but it's because
Yeah,
it's really impactful. So like
yeah,
the customization, the ability to bring your own data set, um,
yeah.
and the flexibility that you have with that. Um, I know we're gonna talk about Mapbox Studio as well, but that
Yep, yep.
is super exciting. Um, so those layers that I showed you guys, they're not even Mapbox Studio layers yet, but Mapbox Studio, it's its own, like, that needs its own webinar. It's a super cool tool for bringing data into your maps. Um, and having an industry leader that you can trust. So like um, when we were considering moving to Mapbox, like we we really asked ourselves, if we're gonna move off of Google, we better pick a company that we can trust and that they're not gonna do a rug pull after a couple of years. And so Mapbox has really been a partner for us and allow us to sort of develop and grow with them. And so I think that's invaluable for a lot of people. Um, and then the product itself, you get a cost efficiency without sacrificing the standard of the product. You get a really great product. And I have to highlight as well the support. We get calls. I've personally gotten calls from someone saying, "Hey, this street doesn't exist, so the street name is wrong." And it happens a lot, especially in real estate, simply because we get a lot of new construction listings. And so new constructions, the county doesn't even have the street updated yet. So of course, most mapping services won't have it. And so we're able to contact support as soon as a listing goes live and they say, hey, this street is not on the map yet. And we're able to contact Mapbox. And within days, the same week, they're so surprised when I reply to them and say, hey, check the map and it's updated and you get weekly updates with Mapbox. I feel like it's faster than weekly because they send the ticket back and say, hey, it should be on there now. And sure enough, it is.
Hmm.
And a lot of the time it is there before it's on Google or Apple or anything like that. So I love the support and the speediness of the data correction.
Eric, thank you. Always helpful to hear a customer talk about the value proposition or value benefits. Now I'm going to shift over to you to let you kind of share uh, some of the exciting initiatives you're working on, things as a leader and really as a technology leader in the real estate vertical, and especially down in the Houston area. So here's your opportunity to share some exciting updates on what you're working on.
Yeah, so for me, the most exciting thing we're working on is it's sort of more an internal thing. People may not it may not be exciting to other people. It's very exciting to us, and that's school layer data. So a lot of the people that are looking for real
Mhm.
estate, they look for schools, and they need to have up to date school boundary information because if you're depending on what school your home is zoned to, your value or how quickly it sells may change. And so um, we did used to get our data from a vendor, but they didn't update that very quickly. And so we started updating our data in-house, and we still do. But we still had to go through that vendor to send them our data. Then they would provide a layer for us, and then we would implement that. And we're looking to move that process into Mapbox Studio, like I mentioned. And we're looking to move most of our data layers to Mapbox Studio because the integration that's there is awesome, but also the ability for our GIS specialists to go in there and change the data as soon as we get it, as soon as the school district put that data out, we'll be able to have that data. And so hopefully for the consumers and for agents, the experience will be, oh, HAR has the most up-to-date data thing. So I think that it's not very exciting for other people. It's like we try for technology to sort of be in the background and have it just work. And so another thing that I'm really excited for is using Mapbox isochrones to power our drive time search. So we have a search where you're able to like put your work address and say, hey, I want to live 20 minutes or 30-minute drive from this address at this time. So like how bad is rush hour? Like I don't want to be more than 20-minute drive from my job. And so that kind of search, we're able to do that with Mapbox isochrones. And so we're trying to move that over to Mapbox as well, just because again of the integration. The current vendor that we have is not the best. They don't have a lot of uptime or as good as I would like at least. Um, and so the other thing is the new 3D buildings that was released recently. Um, we we are looking into switching over to that style, which
Hmm.
again for real estate is
Standard.
super cool. Yeah, the
Yeah,
standard. Yeah,
our
yeah.
standard styles. Yeah, that's exciting. We look forward to seeing that implemented.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that it's sort of like the quote unquote downside of having adopted Mapbox so early is that we were on V1 for so long. But we're that's definitely on our roadmap to move over to that new style. It
Yeah,
looks awesome.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, awesome, awesome. So, how about why not just share? I mean, you've been really great in sharing recommendations to the audience. Is there anything else you want to share before we move over to some questions from the audience?
Yeah, I mean, the way I got started personally, I just went to Mapbox and I made an account and I started messing with it. and you can just do that with the free tier that's on there. Is very generous, and then you can look over all of the options, all of the services that Mapbox offers. Like there might be things that we're not using that you would use. And for people that are not developers, more of the decision makers or executives, there's a lot of examples out there of each service that Mapbox has. I love those example pages. Sometimes I just go there if I want to look at sort of like the finished product of what can we do. I go there, sort of check out what are some of the things that Mapbox offers.
Cool. Thank you. All right, let's open this up to Q&A, and let me see in here the Q&A, some questions. Love it. Okay, I think this question, I'm looking for resources for adding a deed plotter to Mapbox. Can you give me some ideas of where to look? Also, what are the best resources for tools to create text callouts and icons on maps?
A deed plotter, are you talking like, I'm not sure if they're talking like parcel maps for each property. That's something that we had to do. And I'm not sure how we can share things on here, because I feel like the answer to this is very technical, but that's something that's definitely you can do with Mapbox.
Okay.
So
And maybe let's see. I don't know if someone on our team is live and wants to add some color to that. If not, we can actually follow up with you, Ruby, with
yeah,
some links and to documentation and kind of further investigation. So
yeah, for sure. I
why
see
don't we go to
another
a
I see
second
another
question?
question here.
Yep.
Yeah, the Jeff asked a good question here. What other GIS layers are you looking to use? You use parcel teams for pulsar boundary layers, and that seems to be raster layer, not a vector layer. Is there a reason you're not using vector tiles? Yeah, so that's a limitation of our vendor. They use raster layers, and that's one of the things that we thought was going to be an issue when we move over to Mapbox, because they use vector maps, and then we have raster layers from our vendors, but we were able to integrate those. And so while it is a vector map, you're still able to have raster layers for any custom data that you want. But if your data is in a vector format, then much better. It's going to look much better than the raster one. So and as far as the flooding question, we don't have a flooding layer. We're actually looking into a provider for that, but we could not find one that provided a like a ready to use layer to show. We do link out. So like if you're looking at a listing, we link out to FEMA's flood map. Unfortunately, we cannot integrate it into the map. We would love to do that.
We've got another question here, which I think you've been touching on throughout this, but maybe you can kind of encapsulate this into one thought is like, what's the most valuable information you can convey to a home buyer through the use of maps? So I think that's really the crux of your mission statement. And how would you answer that? Like, what really drives efficiency in the customer experience in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think our designers are really good at sort of drilling down to that. We did a lot of user focus groups, and to see what were the most important things, that because it's all about the information that you display, right? And so
Mhm.
we show the pricing directly on the pen, and then we show people want to see images. They love images, so we show the image. And so We also make sure that when you, I didn't show this on the demo, but when you click on the information for the listing, it comes up as a pop-up with all of the information right on there. So you're not taking people away from the page, and it's all in the same area. They keep their search. They don't have to be constantly switching back and forth and reloading or anything like that. We try to give people an experience where they can sort of jump in and out and get as much or as little detail as they want. Um, as far as the map, we our pins, we went through a lot of iteration on our pins and what colors we use, and we keep in mind not just consumers but also realtors. Like the colors of the pin sort of tell them, is it an active listing? Is there a contract on it? Is it pending? Is it sold? And so we take all of that into consideration.
Mhm.
But it's definitely our most used search. People always want to search by map, and that makes sense. Real estate is about location, so
Awesome. Awesome. Super helpful, Eric. I love it. We have a few more questions. Do you want to take a peek at some of these and probably have enough time for two or three?
sure, sure. I like this one from Anonymous. Do you have any tips for a new real estate startup that wants to do rich map visualizations? Well, we sort of touched on that with the raster versus vector earlier, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you're looking to do map visualizations, data visualization, um, Mapbox is awesome. There's our engineer that works on this day in and day out was showing me there's a bulk, you can do bulk visualization, so like put bulk markers on the map and have it change dynamically based on the data that you give it. And so Mapbox for data visualization is great. The customability of it is really something that I feel like it sort of sets Mapbox apart. And again, like I mentioned earlier, you can just create an account and try it out and see if it's going to work for whatever your startup is thinking about. But I think that you'll find that whatever you can think of, you'll probably be able to have Mapbox do for you because they just give you a lot of customizations.
Right. 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 Either pre-made or bring your own with layers and yeah. So there's a few more questions in here. There's one the anonymous asked again, which I think is awesome. Love your engagement. It's like, what are the features and functionality for your agents, right? And you touched on that. You've got showing times, you've got drive time, but those are, I think, the drive time is really something for your home buyers,
Mhm.
correct? So I think you have you set out, you said you really built this for realtors first and foremost to give them a customized kind of almost a personalized platform for them to run their business. Can you go into a little deeper? What is that features and functionality that you give that they can't get somewhere else that really elevates their their role as professionals?
Yeah, I mean, our search specifically, I feel like more than others in the industry, has a lot of advanced filters that it agents really know what those are. And so we sort of hide them. You can like you can show advanced filters, and then agents are able to go in there and search as well. And although we did make the search for consumers, a lot of the times agents are the ones searching for their consumers. So they use our search a lot as well. And so they'll save a search and like come back to it later or they'll get email updates based on an area of the map that their consumer wants. So they draw an area and then we let them know when a listing in that area comes comes up. And so it's something that's useful for both agents and consumers. We also there's a really cool feature that we do where if a consumer signals, hey, I'm using this agent, their whole sort of feed, all of the listings that they find, it, it will show that agent as presented by this agent instead of the listing agent. So if they want to contact someone, they'll contact the agent directly. And so that's one of the ways that while we give the consumer all of this flexibility, this rich map search, we are putting the agent first. And so they'll be there first and foremost, and their consumer is not going to be like, oh, I saw this listing agent with this house, let me go with him instead of this other agent. They can have the flexibility that of saying, hey, this is my client, and you can keep it throughout the whole life of the consumer on HAR. They really like that.
Yeah, that's great. And what someone else asked is really cross device, right? When we're talking cross platform, and I think it brings up a very intriguing question that I want to pose to you is how has Mapbox helped or detracted when it comes to a, a similar performance and rendering experience across all devices, right? Whether you've got Android or iOS and web. Can you give some insight to how Har's experience with this?
Yeah, so specifically for Showing Smart, um, that was something that we sort of, I'm not sure that we would have been able to do that without Mapbox, because the mobile app is made with React Native. For the developers who know what that is, it's sort of like you make it once and you deploy it to both Android and iOS. And using the Mapbox SDK with React Native sort of gave us, like you're saying, that flexibility of like, hey, it's gonna look the same everywhere, and we don't have to test in Android, then go to iOS and look at how does it look on there. And well, this feature is on here in iOS, but it's not here in Android. So how do we code that? And so we just released it with the Mapbox SDK, one experience, one testing. Is very, very useful in that regard.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Eric. Super helpful. Let's see. We kind of touched on maybe one idea since uh, you're the expert in the space, and you're someone who spent 8 years with Mapbox. I think what might be helpful for some of our attendees is you did an initial evaluation, right? How many providers were you considering? And over time, I've got to figure you are very aware of uh, our competitors, right? Other
Mhm.
vendors in the space. What would you say to somebody who is currently either with a one vendor and maybe wants to uh, kind of open up a search and an evaluation to see what else is out there, right? What can you share from that perspective? And I hate to just put you on the spot, but give us a sense of what you've learned, because try to do it really candidly, the good, the bad, right? Look at it from that perspective or share.
Yeah, and so there's there's a couple of there's a lot of map vendors, but there's only, I feel like, a couple that are sort of the big players. Um, and mind you, back then there were even less.
Mm-hmm.
But there's the open data set, OpenStreetMap, which keeps getting better and better. Um, and the thing about that is that the burden of maintenance is on you for that, and you don't get a complete product, right? So you that's just maps. That doesn't include geocoding, doesn't include satellite imagery. It's just the base map. Even the style you have to do yourself. And so we looked at there was a vendor in Europe, I forget their name, and they would help you to have your own server, roll out your own thing. And one of the biggest reasons why we didn't even consider them was because the support wasn't there. So again, it's not a whole complete service. When we were doing business, they would be sleeping. And so there wasn't somebody that was going to enter the phone when we would call them. And then again, with the big players like Google Maps, if I mean, if that's your jam, if that's what fits, sure. But again, they don't answer the phone. They'll give you, you can create a support ticket and pray essentially. And I mean, I'm not trying to bash them. They do respond to their tickets, but it does feel like you're talking to a multi-billion-dollar corporation that doesn't really care about your little corner of the web. And so that's the difference for us with Mapbox. Um, we were actually with Bing Maps before we were with Google, and I don't even know if they're still around, honestly, decades ago. Um, and I think Amazon has ear maps as well. But again, I would, if you're doing a search, I would sort of compare all of those things and see what's better for you. You're gonna be hard pressed to find a more competitive product out there, which is why I am, like you said, I'm very candid and I mention all of these names here because I feel like you can just you go Mapbox goes toe to toe with all of these guys, and I feel like comes out on top.
Thanks. I appreciate you, and apologies for putting you on the spot, but you navigated that well. All right. Well, we have a whole bunch of more questions that we're not going to be able to get to. We will answer them, though. We will be able to send responses to each of you with answers to your question. And thank you for all of the involvement, and the interaction. So, I think that is we're going to wrap things up, and want to thank everyone for joining, and of course, Eric, thank you so much. Your insight, your experience, is so valuable, and I know we all learned something from that today. So, um, one last thing we're going to do, folks, is everyone who added or shared their role in the country. We are going to enter you into a raffle for Mapbox Yeti tumblers. I don't know how many tumblers were given out, but stay tuned. You may get an email asking for your address. So thank you all again. Have an outstanding afternoon, evening, morning, and appreciate everyone from joining. All the best.
Thank you for having me.